Hey, everybody, and welcome back to a new edition of MazzaOnSports. Here to talk about the Myles Garrett trade to the Los Angeles Rams, a huge blockbuster trade that happened a few days ago, plus the A.J. Brown trade to the New England Patriots. We'll also get into a little MLB news and a little injury front on what we've been hearing from the Yankees and Aaron Judge. But first, we'll begin today with the NBA Finals. The New York Knicks defeated the San Antonio Spurs in Game 1 of the NBA Finals in San Antonio, 105-95, after they swept the Philadelphia 76ers to advance to the NBA Finals. The San Antonio Spurs, who just a few days ago, really over or last weekend, defeated the Oklahoma City Thunder in 7 games in Oklahoma City, and this series, I think, in the NBA Finals, I think what you saw in Game 1 is what it's going to be like the whole way. It's going to be competitive. It's going to be chippy. It's going to be good. It's going to be close. It's going to be fun. You're going to get a lot of mixes and matches. You're going to get some good matchups. You're going to get a lot of stars showing out. And I think what you saw last night in Game 1 was the Knicks star. Jalen Brunson showed out last night. And he wasn't really very good in the first 3 quarters of the game, but in the fourth quarter, Brunson showed up, and he was fantastic. But really what you saw was the Knicks started off hot. They got off to a hot start. It looked like they would continue their streak of cruising through wins, but honestly, I didn't think that as the game was going on, because the Spurs are just too good and they're too talented. Spurs punched back, and again, Victor Wembanyama didn't really have a great game on the stat sheet, although he did have 26 points, but a lot of that came in the second half. But what you saw last night from the Spurs was Julian Champagnie had a great game. He nailed 5 threes. He was hot from 3. He nailed 5 threes. Dylan Harper played pretty well, 16 points of his own. But you saw, and Devin Vassell had a good game too, at least made a couple of shots, was 4 of 11 from field, but he did make a couple of key shots. The Spurs had control for a while after the Knicks fought back with the early punch and got an early double-digit lead. But the Spurs came back. They got themselves a double-digit lead, but the Knicks didn't persevere. The Knicks persevered. The Knicks didn't quit. The Knicks hung in there on the road in San Antonio. And I think this series coming in is a case of the best team in the West, or the best team in the entire NBA, the Spurs, against the hottest team in the NBA, the Knicks. The Spurs came out of the tougher conference. They came out of the better conference. They were the second seed in the West, just right behind Oklahoma City, who they beat in the regular season, and they just beat in the postseason. And the Knicks were the 3 seed, but some figured, we don't know. We're not really sure. They got down 2-1 to Atlanta. People were still not sure, and a lot of questions were being asked about this Knicks team and what's going to happen to Mike Brown or KK or Karl Anthony Towns or Mikal Bridges or whoever if they lose Game 1. What does this say about Jalen Brunson if they lose the series to the Atlanta Hawks? But then they stormed back and won 11 in a row to get to this point. And the Knicks showed that at least last night, that the hottest team is going to be the team that's going to be tough. They're tougher. They're more, and people were, I think the Knicks had more to prove last night. As weird as it is to say, I think the Knicks had more to prove last night than the Spurs, because there was a lot of people that said, well, the Knicks aren't really still that good. They had an easy road, easy path, not a great Eastern Conference that they won and that they defeated. And look, the Eastern Conference was not as good as the West this year, and really hasn't been over the last few years. The West is a superior conference, if we're being honest. But the Knicks were kind of being ignored and shafted because of it, and not really taken seriously. And I think a lot of people felt the Spurs would kind of cruise to a championship here against a weaker team, but the Knicks proved. So I think the Knicks have a lot more to prove in this series, to prove people wrong again. And I think they had a lot to prove last night, and getting down the way they did, struggling the way they did early on. But then they picked up, and the way they contained Victor Wembanyama was very impressive. Again, Victor Wembanyama, he did finish the game with 26 points, but a lot of that came around the second half or so. First half, he struggled a lot, and even into the second half, he struggled with turnovers. He struggled with turnovers. I thought the Knicks did a good job at least containing him. You're not going to stop Victor Wembanyama a lot, and especially when he's still very young and he still has a lot of work to do because, again, I think Victor is an amazing player, top 5 in the league. But I think people forget he's still only 22 years old and only in his second year in the NBA. I mean, what he's done in year 2 already is incredible. But he still has a lot more growth and a lot more growth to do. And I think what you saw yesterday was the veteran Brunson, who has been around the league now, from Dallas to New York, and does have, he's more seasoned in the playoffs. Brunson, he may not be the sexier name, the bigger star, the bigger name as Wembanyama is, but he's more seasoned. He's been in the playoffs with the Knicks every year he's been here in New York. It's been a journey. Victor had not been in the playoffs until this year. This just year 2, he makes the playoffs and only in his second year. And then you get, so as Victor is kind of, getting contained by Karl-Anthony Towns, who I thought did a good job against him. Even OG at times did a good job. Mitchell, I thought held his own, even though Mitchell, I'm still concerned with him with the finger. But you saw in the fourth quarter, Brunson really took over. Brunson really took over with 13 or so points in the fourth quarter and made the big 3 by the fourth to give him the lead, made the big shot too to extend the lead and really put the game on ice and win the game and really put the game in their favor and win it. You saw the Knicks chemistry and their camaraderie and their Josh Hart even. Josh Hart only had 3 points last night. But you know what he did that was great? 15 rebounds. 15. Karl-Anthony Towns at 18 points and 12 rebounds of his own. But Josh Hart, he had a good game. Karl-Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, only a 9-point day, but even still, Brunson 30, Anthony Towns 18 and 12 rebounds. Josh Hart only 3 points, but he had 6 assists and 15 rebounds. OG was really good down the stretch of this game, had 17 of his own. Just a very good team basketball by the Knicks, and a huge credit to Josh Hart to, again, have the game he did. He wasn't shooting well at all, but he made up for it, but with 15 rebounds and what was it, 9 assists, I think, and 6 assists, excuse me. He made up for it in other ways. That's what you have to do. When your shot isn't there and you're struggling from the paint, or you're struggling from 3, you're struggling from the glass. And there was a lot of times, I noticed that too with Josh Hart, where Josh Hart's coming on the fast break, you think, oh, easy layup, but he can't get there because number 1 is there. Victor Wembanyama is there. That happened a couple of times. And that was where Wembanyama truly made his impact in this game, actually. It wasn't on the stat sheet. It was presence, just his presence that disrupted the Knicks at times. So that was really where his presence was felt, outside the box score and the points. But Josh Hart made up for it by getting rebounds and winning his battles up front by the glass and by the net, and he really, by the basket, he really did a good job doing that with the 15 rebounds. I thought Towns played a very good game, and Brunson was Brunson the fourth quarter. And again, not a strong game by Brunson at all. He had the 30, but he was 12 of 31 from the field, 2 of 9 from 3. Most of it came in the fourth quarter. For 3 quarters, Jalen, and he also got banged up with a knee injury. He had to miss a couple of minutes. But Jalen Brunson was not very good for 3 quarters, but in the fourth quarter, he was fantastic. And I think what you're seeing with Brunson is the molding of a true super. Again, he's always been, over the past 4 or so years, since he's really been a Knick, and since he's emerged as a star, he's never really been part of the upper echelon of players, right? It's always LeBron, obviously, Nikola Jokic, obviously, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, obviously, Victor now, Wembanyama, Luka Doncic, Anthony Edwards, I would even say Jason Tatum, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, he's not Giannis, Brunson is not mentioned in the same realm or class as those guys a lot of the time. He's not really mentioned among those guys. And yet I could argue he is the most valuable, just valuable to a team as any of those guys are. You take Jalen Brunson off the Knicks, and they're a completely different team. You take them off the Knicks, they're a completely different team. Completely different team. Not even close to the same team they are. And they still have good players. If you take out Brunson, they still have good players. Deuce McBride comes off. Deuce McBride actually played a good game off the bench today. Let's give Deuce Deuce McBride some credit. 4 assists in his game off the bench. Jose Alvarado, 7 points off the bench. So Landry Shamet had 13 off the bench. But you take away Brunson, you still have Towns, still have Bridges, still have OG, you still have Hart, but if you take him out, even with those players on the court, that's a much different team. That's not a team that's going to the finals. That's not a team that's not even a team that's advancing to the second round, I don't think. Or at least if they do, it's barely. That Jalen Brunson is as valuable to any team in the NBA, is as valuable to the Knicks as any one player is in the NBA. And if he gets 3, and he's already proven that he belongs up there in that echelon, he belongs up there in that class, of guys, Steph Curry too. He belongs, he's proven he belongs in that class. But there's obviously still deniers and still doubters and still critics. But if they win 3 more games, there's no more denying it that Jalen Brunson is amongst the elite of the elite players in the National Basketball Association. Just 3 more wins to immortality for not just the New York Knicks, but the Knicks too, but for Jalen Brunson. Just 3 more wins, and Jalen Brunson Jalen Brunson will be the biggest face in Knicks history, or one of the biggest faces in Knicks history. But he will also emerge as a true face of the National Basketball Association because he has been that good and that important. And not only has he been that good and that important, he's been that good and that important to the New York Knicks. That's why it boggles my mind that he is not really considered amongst the upper. What he's doing with the Knicks deserves alone for him to be amongst the upper echelon of players. But I think a lot of people just look at him and go, he's undersized. He's not, he's a good player. He's a good player, but he's not a great player. If he continues to do what he's doing, and if they win the NBA championship, the Knicks, you have to put him up there amongst the elite. You have to. He's not just, he's a good player. No, he's a damn good player, a great player that deserves to be up there with the Victors, the Sheas, the Nikola Jokic's of the world. But what he did yesterday in Game 1, being a seasoned vet, playoff experiences every year since he's been a Knick, national championship experience in Villanova, he proved why that's important. He's battle-hard, battle-tested. He's been through these playoffs already. Victor and the Spurs, this is still new to them. Yes, these are 2 teams that are not familiar. I mean, Mikal Bridges has played in the finals before. Mikal Bridges has played in the finals before. These are guys, the Knicks do have guys who have played in the finals before and have also been in a ton of playoff battles, have been in a ton of playoff games for years now as teammates, as teammates. The Spurs, this is only year 2. Darren Fox was with the Kings for years, before coming to San Antonio. But this is what I think Jalen Brunson with his performance yesterday showed in the fourth quarter. It's what he showed. This is what he showed. So OG Anunoby obviously was in the finals with the Raptors not too long ago, but Brunson showed his veteran presence and veteran presence and showed you why he's that good and showed you why he's that important on the road in Game 1 of the finals, that first finals game since 1999. And he drops 13, 14 points on the Spurs, makes a couple of huge shots down the last few minutes, and wins the game for the Knicks. And the Knicks seal the deal and get a big win. Now, I think the Spurs are going to come back tomorrow night, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Spurs get a win tomorrow. But it's a must win now for San Antonio. It's not impossible for them to come back down 0-2, but this for as hot as the Knicks are. Now they've won 12 in a row in the postseason. If the Knicks pull it off tomorrow and win and go up 2-0, it just you could, that might, even at 0-2, that's a pretty big hole for the Spurs just because of how hot the Knicks are right now. Just because of how hot the Knicks are. Excuse me for a second. There's a little the TV there for a second. But that's where the Knicks are right now. And it's a great spot to be in. It's a good spot to be in if you're the Knicks. And if you're the Spurs, you got to come back and win tomorrow easily. And if you're Victor, you got to have a better game than you had yesterday. 26, yeah, but he had the 20. He had the 20 last night, Victor. He had the 26, but he was contained for a lot of the game. He was contained. So all eyes will be on Wembanyama tomorrow. All eyes will be on him tomorrow before we go to game 3 at the Garden. Must win for the Spurs tomorrow. All the Knicks had to do was pull one. Just pull one in San Antonio, and then you can go back to the Garden for games 3 and 4 on Monday and I believe Wednesday. But you see the importance of Brunson. You see the importance of Brunson. He may not ever win most valuable player, but there is no player, I think, in the NBA more valuable to a team than Jalen Brunson. No player more than him. Speaking of valuable players, Myles Garrett's been a pretty damn valuable player for the Cleveland Browns for the past many years. And the Cleveland Browns, a year after, what a saga this was, a year after the requesting a trade, the letter to Cleveland that Myles Garrett put out, the then getting paid, which he did, he got paid, playing the year, having the season of his career and breaking the single season sack record, and just for him to get traded anyway. What a weird thing this was. But he gets traded to, of all teams, the Los Angeles Rams for a first-round pick. Jared Verse goes to the Cleveland Browns, and a third-round pick in 2028, and a fifth-round pick later on. This was a trade that I'm shocked happened, even though there was all the rumors and everything about Myles Garrett's future and the Eagles are interested. Yes, I did hear that. We did hear a couple times the Rams. I still didn't think it would happen. I just felt after last year and the contract extension and Garrett's season, I just felt like the Browns would keep Myles. I felt like they would keep him. And I felt like he would stay in Cleveland for at least a little while longer. But you could tell there was some noise. But I was still shocked when I found out when I saw the news that he was traded. And we'll do the Cleveland Browns first before we get to the Rams. I think the Cleveland Browns made out good, but I think they could have done better. I know that's weird to say when you got Jared Verse is a good player, 25, 26 in his prime. He's coming defensive rookie of the year, coming off a 7.5 sack season last year in his second year, and he's only going to get better. At least you hope if you're the Browns. And they got a first-round pick out of it. But if I'm the Browns, I'm not the Browns, but if I'm the Browns and I'm trading Myles Garrett, who is not just the best defensive player in the league, he's one of the best players in the league, period. Offense, defense, special teams. He's one of the best. You could argue and say he's the best player overall in the entire league. You could argue that. But he's certainly the best defensive player in the world in the NFL. And he's coming off a record-setting season that will be a long time before we ever see again. But he's coming off a record-setting season, breaking Michael Strahan's 2001 record. And yet, I feel like the return, I get it. You get Jared Verse, you get a first-round pick. And Verse was a first-round pick. So it's almost like you do get 2 first-round picks. But I feel like they should have gotten more. I would want Verse and 3 first-rounders. If I'm treating you, Myles Garrett, especially you, Los Angeles Rams, who were in the NFC Championship game a year ago and that close to the Super Bowl, clearly you don't need them that much because you're in the NFC Championship game a year ago and that close to the Super Bowl. Clearly you don't need them that much. So why don't you don't need them that much. So why don't you give us 3 first-round picks plus Jared Verse, then we'll talk. But instead, I feel like they could have gotten more for him. I just feel like Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam and those guys could have gotten more for him. And for the Cleveland Browns, look, we know they weren't going to go anywhere this year, even with Myles Garrett. We know that. Not saying that the Browns were a playoff team or something like that with Myles Garrett or anything. They weren't. And the Browns are searching for, what else is new? A quarterback. What else is new? They're searching for a quarterback. And next year's draft prospects, is supposed to be good. It's at the quarterback position. So if you're the Cleveland Browns, you got to get yourself ready for the 2027 NFL draft and to pick a quarterback. And who's your most valuable player? Who's your guy that you can get the most for in a trade? Well, you get Myles Garrett. Myles has already talked about, Myles has said before how upset he is, how, not too long ago, he said he wanted out. So what do you do? And I think he wasn't even showing up for OTAs or workouts. So what do you do? Well, you got to find a good spot for him. You got to find a good spot for him. If you're the Cleveland Browns. So, and you need draft capital. You need draft capital to go up and get a quarterback and build some talent around him. So what do you do? And they're probably going to have a bad record anyway, with or without Myles Garrett. So trade him, get what you can, and find your quarterback next year. And they did. Having said that, that's why I feel like they should have gotten more. Multiple first-round picks. I mean, this is the Los Angeles Rams we're talking about. They give away first-round picks like they give away candy. Like they're giving away free ice cream. Like they don't care about the Les Snead and these guys. I'll get to the Rams in a minute, but they don't care about draft picks. They don't care about draft picks. They do not care about draft picks. They don't care. And they certainly don't care about first-round picks. Because this is now the second first-round pick they've traded. They traded their first-round pick to the Chiefs for Trent McDuffie. They had 2 first-round picks coming into the 2026 draft, and they traded one of them to get Trent McDuffie, and then they used the other one to draft Ty Simpson. That's a whole other matter, but the Browns need all the picks they can get, and they need to find their quarterback. And this is Myles bleeping Garrett, a once-in-a-generation player, it will be a while before we see a player suit up like that for the Cleveland Browns. At least we think. Might be a while. Might be a while before we see a player of that caliber suit up for the Cleveland Browns ever again. But I feel like they should have gotten more. That's why I feel like they should have gotten more. I get it. You got Jared Verse, good player. You got a first-round pick. It's not. I don't think it was a bad. You got a third. I don't think it was a bad deal for the Browns. I just feel like they could have gotten more, especially when it was Myles Garrett. It was Myles Garrett. So, but if you're the Los Angeles Rams, oh my gosh, what a get! Oh my gosh, what a get! And I think this move for the Rams makes them the clear-cut favorite to not just get to the Super Bowl, to represent from the AFC, from the NFC. I think this makes them the favorite to win the whole thing. To me, I think this trade puts them over the Seahawks and the NFC, and the NFC West and the NFC, and it puts them in position to win the Super Bowl. To me, they're now the favorites to win the Super Bowl, barring any unforeseen things or something like that. That's the team that's the favorite to me to win the Super Bowl now. And they got Myles Garrett to get past the Seahawks. They did. They lost to the Seahawks twice last year, both times close in Seattle. They got Myles to beat Seattle, to beat Sam Darnold and those guys, to win the division, to win the conference and beat Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, or the Bears and Caleb Williams, or the Packers and Jordan Love, or the Cowboys and Dak Prescott, or the Commanders with Jaden Daniels, or the Lions with Jared Goff, the 49ers with Brock Purdy, obviously in their own division. They got to still win the 49ers. That is a team that has got so much talent. And I think they are the clear-cut favorites now to win the Super Bowl. Not just get there, but to win it. What a trade to get the best player, the best defensive player in the world, in the NFL, and to improve your defense. You improve your pass rush. You improve your secondary McDuffie. Now you improved your pass rush. that makes them the favorite to me to win the Super Bowl. And do I agree with their philosophy of trading away all these draft picks and not really building towards the future? I don't know what the Rams will look like 5 or 7 years from now. I don't know what the Rams will look like 3 years from now, 4 years from now, whatever. I don't know what they'll look like. I don't know what their future looks like. I don't know what it looks like, because I don't agree with trading draft picks, not really building towards the future. That's not really how I would build a sports team, let alone just an NFL team. What the Rams are doing is rare. Doing what they're, trading draft picks for veteran players and stars and winning, especially in the NFL. Especially in the NFL where draft picks are at a premium. You have to win in the NFL via draft picks. That's how it is. And the Rams are the one team that are like, no, we don't need draft picks. We just need this guy to fit our system, to play our games, and we'll win. We'll be competitive. And that they make the playoffs every year. They've won the Super Bowl 2021. They're trying to win another one. They were in the championship game a year ago. Last year, came close to going to the Super Bowl again. So they're the one team, especially in the NFL, that does this, that we've seen do this, and it works. They're the one team, but who knows where they'll look like 5 years from now. But for now, they should win 13 to 14 games, be the number one seed, and get to the Super Bowl and win it. That's their expectations. So A.J. Brown to the Patriots, the trade that we knew months ago that finally came to fruition to the New England Patriots. Not surprised, obviously. To me, this is a move I think that should have been made a year ago or so, really during the season, I think. And really all I got to say is this about it. A.J. Brown's a good receiver, still a good receiver, good big buy receiver. I think he can be a good playmaker for Drake May. But is he going to be happy? Is he going to be a distraction? Is he going to be a pain in the butt and go on social media and complain about not getting targets such from Drake May because he was doing it with Jalen Hurts? Now he's going to do it with Drake May. Could he do it with Drake May? Who knows? Is he going to be all right being with his former head coach in Tennessee? And Mike Vrabel, remember, he was traded away from Tennessee as well because he was unhappy. So, now he's reunited with his old head coach. Let's see. Let's hope, hopefully for the Patriots it works. But the Eagles, all right, A.J. Brown's traded. I don't want to hear any more complaints. Everything in that locker room now should be all sunshine and rainbows. That locker room, the biggest thing holding the Eagles back is their locker room and all the shenanigans that's been going on over the last year, even few years, going back just to 2023, before they won the Super Bowl in 24. But with A.J. Brown traded, and he was also being part of those shenanigans, there should be no more. There should be, you guys bond as a team, unite as a team, and you go be the team that you should be. That was a disappointment last year that to win the division and then get knocked down in the first round just after winning the Super Bowl, when we all thought you were going to at least get back to the NFC Championship game and be a really good team, but you just never fully clicked on offense. Whatever it was, you just never fully clicked. So they made the offensive coordinator switch. A.J. Brown, who caused a lot of distractions and didn't have a camaraderie with his quarterback and Jalen Hurts, he gets traded. So now I don't want to see any complaints for the Eagles. This is a really good team that should win the NFC East and should be in the NFC Championship game against those same Rams. But we'll see now. I need to see that locker room get together and become a team again and realize and understand that we were in the Super Bowl a few years ago and almost beat the Chiefs. Then we were in the Super Bowl again just 2 years ago and we beat the Chiefs. We've been to 2 Super Bowls. We won one. We really should be 2-time Super Bowl champions. We're good enough to get back to another one. Let's go get to another one, win a Super Bowl, and win another one. So you got the core, you got the team. I think you have the quarterback. I mean, I know there's all these questions about Jalen Hurts and everything, but Jalen Hurts has proven to be a pretty darn good quarterback in the National Football League. So I need to see that locker room get together and become a team again. And with A.J. Brown traded, he was obviously the one that they kind of took the fall. It should be all sunshine and rainbows. So we'll see. We'll see with that trade. So we'll see. Aaron Judge, to make quickly to Major League Baseball. Actually, a little quick Stanley Cup update. Let's do a little Stanley Cup update before we go to Major League Baseball. Right now, the Golden Knights are up 2-0 on the Hurricanes, as the Knights are up 2 games as the Knights look to go 2-0 on the Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Stanley Cup Finals. I think the Golden Knights are going to win that series. To be honest, the Golden Knights are just really good. The Hurricanes played well, but the Golden Knights, I think, to me, are going to win the Stanley Cup. But Aaron Judge and the Yankees. Now, the Yankees did win their game today to salvage the series against the Cleveland Guardians. But the big story, obviously, is Aaron Judge. Judge has been dealing with shoulder pain. I think even his ribs. So he's reported shoulder pain while swinging at the end of May. The Yankees didn't find anything in their initial screens to suggest a straightforward cause for the superstar's discomfort. This is obviously from an article on Newsweek. Yet today it was reported that the team was consulting Dr. Gregory Pearl, who is a physician who specializes in complex vascular procedures and TOs and thyroid outlet syndrome management of high performance athletes. Thyroid outlet syndrome would be the worst case scenario for Judge. Obviously, as a Mets fan, this is the same thing that Matt Harvey had in 2016, and it pretty much, his career was done after that. Not saying that would be the same for Judge, but it's a very serious surgery. But it would not only diagnose the end of the season, but it would also possibly have any chance of him playing at his peak condition. So we'll see about that. But this whole thing with Judge is interesting. And it could be again, the Yankees, we're in that month of June where we kind of expect the Yankees to have that little fall. We'll have to start to struggle. I mean, Aaron Boone's already getting asked that question about the June swoon and how they always start to struggle from here on out, and then like late August, they turn it around, and turn it on heading to the playoffs. But Aaron Judge being out for a foreseeable time obviously dampens their chances of winning the World Series. Obviously, that's the ultimate goal for the Yankees every year, but that's obviously especially the ultimate goal here. Aaron Judge missed his third straight game today in their win over the Guardians with a bone bruise in the rib. Now, so they say shoulder, bone bruise, and they're waiting clarity, but they're waiting clarity on it. So, and on the right ribs, it's the right ribs that is causing the shoulder pain. Now, remember, as great as Aaron Judge has been, he has had an injury history over his career. So the Yankees have to get this right. They have to find out what's going on with him. And it depends on what the injury is and what the results show and how long he may or may not be out. But if he is out for a long time, how will the Yankees go through with this? And I think the only way that the Yankees can move on from this, again, if Judge is going to be out for a long time, whether it's whatever time frame it is, but the way for them to get through this is their starting pitching. They have arguably the best starting pitching staff in Major League Baseball. Arguably they do. And so that's the easiest way to get by losing one of the best hitters, if not the best hitter in baseball, and that's your pitching is really good. Is that your pitching is really good. And they have really good pitching with Schlittler, with Rodon, with Cole now back. They have really good starting pitching. Every single guy in there is a quality starting pitcher. And that's the way to offset the injury of, again, you'll never fully replace an Aaron Judge. You just can't. But you do that with your pitching, and the Yankees do have great starting pitching. That's really the only way that they can move on from this if Judge has to miss time. But it does affect the offense. That offense this season has been good, but it's really been Judge and Ben Rice. That's really been their offense. Stanton's missed time due to injury. Bellinger's been inconsistent. Ryan McMahon, they really haven't got much at all from him. They've been back and forth on shortstop with Caballero and Volpe. Goldschmidt being in and out of the lineup off the bench. And although Goldschmidt's having a solid year, actually, being more of a utility player on the bench, but really that offense, as good as the numbers show you, has really been Judge and Ben Rice. Ben Rice having a heck of a year, and Judge is still being Judge. The numbers may not be, eye-popping for Judge like usually, but I mean, he's Aaron Judge. He's still hitting. He still has 17 home runs. The batting average is 248, but he still has 17 home runs and a 533 slugging at 907 OPS. So he may not be putting up eye-popping MVP numbers, but for Aaron Judge, he's still having a good year for for most players, especially with the 17 homers. But losing him obviously would be huge for that offense. So that's where the biggest adjustment is going to be. And really, that falls on Bellinger. That falls on John Carlos Stanton. That falls on guys like Austin Wells step up. Jazz Chisholm has to be more consistent than he has been this year. I mean, he's back. I don't know if you guys saw, but it was one of the Cleveland Guardians announcers because made a bit of a joke made a joke of Jazz Chisholm because Chisholm went on the Jimmy Fallon show. Yes, he went on the Jimmy Fallon show recently, like a few days ago. And the Cleveland Guardians announcer made a comment about it and said, "Can you believe a guy batting 239 went on the Jimmy Fallon show?" And I was like, "Dang!" I was like, "Oof." But Chisholm has to be more consistent, step up. All these guys on offense, where the Yankees and where the Yankees have seen and go, or so at least a lot of them, we go, someone step up. It can't just be Judge. Someone step up. Judge obviously needs to be better in the postseason and bigger games, but throughout the regular season, I mean, 2024, it was Judge and Soto. Really, that's what their offense was. It was Judge and Soto. Last year, it was Judge and a little bit of and some Cody Bellinger. Really, that was it. It was Judge and Bellinger last year. Rice didn't really have a good year at all. McMahon struggled. Chisholm was still Chisholm, hot and cold. Goldschmidt struggled. So it was really, Dominguez struggled. So it was really Judge and also Bellinger. Now this year it's been Judge and Rice. So someone else in this offense has to step up if Judge is going to be out for a long time. Whether I'm sure we'll find out pretty soon what's going on. But can the Yankees win the World Series without Aaron Judge? If he's going to be out for an extended period of time, could they win the division? Obviously, if he's going to be out for an extended period of time, I think that's the better question right now because we don't know if he's going to be out for the whole season. But if he's out for an extended period of time with this serious injury, with this injury that the Yankees don't really know about right now, can they still win the division over the Tampa Bay Rays who are playing well? Yes, because they have good starting pitching. If the worst case happens and he has to miss the entire season, can they win the World Series? Yes, because they have great starting pitching. Will they? Probably not. They need him in that lineup if they're going to win the World Series. But this Aaron Judge injury is right now, I think, the biggest story in baseball, and it's going to be the one thing that we have to keep an eye on as we go on because this injury could really affect. Because right now the American League, it's whoever wants it. Right now in the American League, it's whoever wants it. The Rays and the Yankees are the clear-cut top teams in the American League. The Guardians have played pretty well. They're on a hot streak. The Guardians have played pretty well. The White Sox have been the surprise of all of baseball. The American League West right now is a mess between with the Mariners, A's, Rangers, and Astros all in it. The Mariners are in first place currently by 2 games over the A's, but the American League West is a mess. Compared to the National League, where you have a lot of strong teams like the Dodgers and the Braves and et cetera. But if Judge is out, that opens up the American League for a lot. If he's out for an extended period of time, or even the rest of the season, where if it's that bad, that opens up the rest of the American League for someone to take it, for someone to win it, for someone to win it. So we'll see. But this Judge injury is going to be something to watch because if Judge is out for either extended period of time, or if he does have to miss the whole season, then I think the Yankee season comes down to that starting rotation and because that's a really damn good starting rotation. So they're going to have to be the bulks. They're going to have to be the bulks of it and carry them the wins and get them to carry them to the playoffs and carry them to the World Series. And look, you can do that with a great starting pitching staff. If I'm Brian Cashman, yeah, you go look for a bat in a couple months. But I also think you look to improve more of the pitching because the pitching's have to be what carries you. But we'll see with this injury. But we'll see with the injury with Judge. A little quick note on the Mets, obviously. We're at Mets jacket, so I got to talk a little bit about the Mets. They had a good month of May, but obviously they're still 7 or 8 games under 500. That 12-game losing streak is still paining them right now. They just lost 2 out of 3. They swept the Marlins. Hey, look at that. They beat the Marlins. Yay. After getting swept by the Marlins. In Miami, but they lost 2 out of 3 to Seattle, and really they should have won 2 out of 3 because the first game they lost because they only got 2 hits. Now, granted, the 2 hits were solo homers, but you gotta get more than 2 hits. But the one thing you can take away from that game that they lost, the first game, was how good Sean Manaea pitched. And that's going to be the thing throughout this month, the starting rotation, how it looks. David Peterson has struggled all year long in the starting rotation. He's been struggling since August, and they moved him back to the bullpen. Kodai Senga has been struggling or has been inconsistent at best in AAA, so there's no way they trust him to start again right now. Jonah Tong's coming out of the bullpen right now. Sean Manaea's coming out of the bullpen to be lawman, although Jonah Tong now got sent to the minor leagues for Joey Gerber. But Sean Manaea looks to be getting – look, Sean Manaea on Tuesday or on Monday pitched really well in 5 innings. He only gave up a home run to Emerson, but that was it. 5, and that's actually the 3rd consecutive good outing, I would say, for Sean Manaea. So, hey, if he can give you something, that'd be a plus for the Mets. But the way the start, and Freddie Peralta pitched well yesterday. He pitched well, pitched good. There was still some long innings and long counts as he was in, like he's been doing all year, but he gave you 6 solid innings. Nolan McLean is really where the real concern is, because he has had 4 really bad outings. Like the first one, not bad, but definitely not great. He battled through 7 and struck out 7, did not have his best stuff, but he pitched good enough. Wasn't great. I shouldn't say good enough, but he battled. That's the best way to put it. He battled. But then he got really, really struggled against Washington, really struggled against Cincinnati. Well, not Cincinnati. What was the previous start? He really struggled the next 2 starts after that. And then in this past series against the Marlins, in his last start, he gave you 5, but he walked 6. Wasn't a good. He hit another batter. It wasn't very good overall. Even though he didn't give up a bunch of runs, he only gave up, I think, the 1. He had some good defense behind him with AJ Ewing and such, Carson Bench. But you're very concerned with Nolan McLean right now. Very concerned. Again, I don't think it's anything too deep. It's the rookie wall. Everyone hits it. It happens to every rookie. He's only had over 20 starts. So again, it's not a seasoned vet at this point. He's still working on things. But if the Mets are going to have some way, some form, to show you something to get back into this, Nolan McLean's going to have to be the guy out of that rotation. And they need better from him over the last 4 starts. And I think he starts, I don't know if he starts tomorrow, but if he doesn't start tomorrow, he starts on Saturday for the Mets. I believe he starts on Saturday, because I think tomorrow is you know what? I think he does start tomorrow, because yesterday was Freddie Peralta. So, but he's either starting tomorrow or Saturday. But no, tomorrow's Christian Scott. Saturday is Nolan McLean. But they need Nolan to be better. They need him to be better. And they need guys to come back healthy. Polanco has been playing AAA. He should be back pretty soon. Francisco Alvarez I don't know how he's done it. 3 weeks ago, this man tore his meniscus, and now he's playing AAA and hitting a couple of doubles in AAA. I think he threw out a guy in AAA action today at second base. I don't know how he's doing it. Just a few weeks shy of a torn meniscus, but all credit to him. I just hope he's healthy. It looks like Luis Robert Lindor could return. I don't think we're going to. There really hasn't been many updates about Lindor. He's been taking some baby steps. I remember they did say late June, but it's already June 4th now, and I haven't seen really many updates about him since that latest report that they were hoping to get him back late June. I think at this point, you'd be lucky to get Lindor by early July, shortly before the All-Star break. The latest would be obviously right after the All-Star break. So, but we'll see with him. And who knows with Luis Robert. And even if Luis Robert comes back this season, he's surely not going to be the starting center fielder at this point. It's going to be AJ Ewing. So Robert's going to have to take a platoon role or even DH. And I think another question obviously is at first base, because Jared Young is hitting really well. And Vientos, for every game where he hits a home run or slugs in a couple of RBIs, he'll have a couple of games where he strikes out and has bad at-bats, etc. He took a lot of heat the other day for a very bad game he had defensively and offensively. That's kind of who Mark Vientos is at this point. But obviously, there's still those spurts where he's great as a slugger. But Jared Young has been pretty good as a lefty, and the Mets need some lefty bats. So, Jared Young's hitting the ball well. So we'll see. how that goes from there. But really, it's going to come down to the starting pitching. But that starting pitching right now is in a big flux. It's kind of a work in progress right now because Senga struggled. They had to send him down, and he got hurt again. But really, it was also the struggles. Peterson struggled, and they moved him to the bullpen. Clay Holmes got hurt on a ball on a line drive off the bat of Spencer Jones. They hit him in the leg and broke his leg. So a lot of hard luck and struggles. And now all of a sudden that Met rotation is now in flux. It's now trying to figure it out. Christian Scott has pitched well as of late. We'll see how he does tomorrow. They need McLean to get back going. They need Freddie Peralta to step up. They need Jonah Tong and such. If he does come back to pitch well, they need Sean Manaea if they're going to put him back in the rotation to pitch well. So that rotation's has a lot to be figured out. So there's a lot to figure out with the rotation. The bullpen is doing a pretty solid job, knock on wood. The bullpen's been doing a good job overall, knock on wood. So they're keeping the Mets in games, and starting pitching is hanging in there and keeping the Mets in games. They're doing all right despite the fluxing right now, but it all still comes back down to that offense. It all still comes back down to that offense and the struggles they've had in getting on base and not driving and runs in scoring position. It all still comes back to that offense. All still comes back to that offense. So, and they got a tough schedule. They just lost 2 out of 3 to the Mariners, which again, that's another series where they should have won because they didn't score many runs in the first game that they had, only scoring 2 runs on 2 hits. But after that, they get the Padres this weekend. They're home against a surprisingly good Cardinals team. Then they're home against the Braves for the first time, and they have been arguably the best team in the National League so far this season, if not them and the Dodgers. Then they're at Cincinnati. Then they're at Philly. I'll be going to that game at Philly on the 20th. Then they're home against the Cubs. Then they're facing the Phillies again. Then they're at Toronto from the last couple of days of June to July 1st. Then they're at the Braves the first week. Then they're at the Braves for the first full week of July. This schedule gets really, really tough for the Mets. So by the time we get to July 7th, when they're home against the Royals, we'll know where the Mets are in terms of where they're going to be as buyers or sellers at the trade, for the midseason trades, in a month from then. So the Mets season comes down to really these next stretch of games. They're already 1-2, so not a good start, but their whole season comes down to these next stretch of games and how they pan out and how they do. So we'll see. But that about does it for this edition of MazzaOnSports. I will be back on next Monday. We will talk Game 2 of the NBA Finals and everyone the sports around the weekend, the Stanley Cup Finals. We'll even talk a little bit about the Belmont Stakes. We'll get into a little bit of professional wrestling too. I watched Clash in Italy. I thought it was an all right show. I thought Dynamite yesterday, solid show. Didn't like Kevin I going to the Don Callis family. I didn't like the segment on Raw with Jacob Fatu. We'll tune in SmackDown, see how it goes tomorrow. But we'll tune in. We'll be back on Monday to talk more about game 2 of the NBA Finals and preview Game 3, the Stanley Cup playoffs, and more as we go along as we are now in the month of June of the year 2026. So we'll see you all on Monday. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening. I greatly appreciate it. Make sure to like and subscribe. Have yourselves a great night. Have a good weekend, and take care.